Assalamu alaikum girls, I am Miss Saima Khan and today we will have the fourth lecture from this chapter. Previously we have studied about the discharge tube experiment, discovery of electron, its properties, its charge to mass ratio, Millikan's oil drop method. After that we studied discovery and properties of protons, similarly discovery and properties of neutrons. Now in this lecture we will study that how are all these three subatomic particles placed in an atom, or you can say the discovery of nucleus, or it can be Rutherford's experiment. When all these three subatomic particles were discovered, their position was not mentioned, whether an electron is present around the nucleus or is it present in the nucleus or at what position. So there was an issue or problem to locate the three subatomic particles. Rutherford performed an experiment in 1910. With the help of that experiment, he proved the position of these three subatomic particles. Now, mostly this question comes in exams that explain the discovery of nucleus, or what was Rutherford's experiment, explain that. Now you can see the diagram that Rutherford took a thin gold foil and its thickness was 0.0004 centimeters. He took this gold foil and bombarded it with the alpha particles. These alpha particles or helium nuclei are coming out from a radioactive source which is kept in a lead block shield. The radioactive material, it can be any of them, but he took radium or polonium and bombarded these alpha rays on the gold foil. Around the gold foil he placed fluorescent screen or zinc sulfide screen, so that if any of the rays are hitting the gold foil and some of the rays are coming out from this gold foil in any of the directions, they can be seen on this fluorescent screen as the glow or as a thickness over there. So he bombarded all these alpha particles on the gold foil and saw and concluded that most of the alpha rays were passing through this gold foil, while very few of them deflected back and few of them made certain angle for deflection, but most of them were passing straight. If you can see the diagram, they have shown that think that you have an atom and nucleus or a plus is present in the middle while electrons are surrounding it, and helium nuclei or alpha particles, or you can say that He+2 are coming and passing through those atoms. We can see that most of the rays are passing by because positive and negative do not have any effect on each other, so they let pass all these alpha particles through them. Very few of them just hit the center, that is the nucleus, and were deflected back with the same angle or with little different angle from which the alpha rays are coming out. He saw that very few of them deflected with a little larger angle, showing that they are coming closer to the nucleus, not directly hitting, rather than coming closer and making a larger angle. This explained that the electrons are negatively charged particles which are surrounding the center, and center must be a positively charged particle. That's why it is making deflection back or making certain angle, by the help of which he concluded that electrons are revolving around the nucleus and nucleus has proton and neutron present in the center or in the nucleus over there. Rutherford concluded, or you can say that what points were given by Rutherford are, first is that an atom consists of small heavy positively charged portion which is known as nucleus. That is, we can say that an atom consists of two parts. One is the nucleus and the other is extra nuclear part or outside the nucleus. Second is there is a negatively charged portion which surrounds the nucleus and it contains electrons which are known as extra nuclear portions. Third is the number of protons in the nucleus are equal to the number of electrons in the planetary. That is, basically Rutherford said that electrons and protons, you can say that they resemble with the solar system or with the planetary system over there. That sun is present in the middle and all the systems are surrounding it or are revolving around it. Similarly, nucleus or proton is present in the middle and electrons are revolving around it. Fourth is the electrons revolve around the nucleus. And fifth, the centripetal force is equal to the electrostatic or centrifugal force. This centripetal and centrifugal force we will study in the next topic, Bohr's atomic model. Here you can just learn these points. Sixth is only a very small volume is occupied by the nucleus. Most of the atom is covered up with the electrons or negatively charged particles. From this, all the properties were made in a table form and properties of three fundamental particles were given in the table. This can come in your exams as well as there can be objectives with the values in your exams. If we just take the electric charge and the mass of all these three subatomic particles, that is protons, neutrons and electrons, we can see that protons charge is plus 1.6022 into 10 raised to power minus 19. While if we take the atomic charge, we can very simply say that it is plus 1. While that of electron, the Coulomb's charge would be exactly the same as that of proton, only the difference would be that of positive and negative. Positive indicates that it is for a proton and negative indicates that we are talking about the electron. So proton and electron has the same charge, only the difference is of plus and minus. While neutrons do not have any charge, so it is 0. If we take the mass, there is little variation in all the masses. You can see that proton, if we take it in grams, is 1.6726 into 10 raised to power minus 24 grams, while that of neutron is 1.6749 into 10 raised to power minus 24. While that of electron is very small, that is 9.1094 into 10 raised to power minus 28. And if we take it in atomic mass unit, it is for protons it is 1.0073, for that of neutron it is 1.0087, and that of an electron is 0.00054858. All this table is very important from your short question. They can ask you that compare all these three fundamental particles related to their charge and mass, or they can ask you in your objectives the different values for mass and electrical charge. After proposing all this Rutherford's atomic model, later on when different scientists worked, they found that there are certain drawbacks, or you can say that there are certain defects for Bohr's atomic model. And what are they? That according to classical electromagnetic theory, the revolving electron around the nucleus should lose energy continuously. Because when we are saying that anything is moving around any substance, it must possess certain energy, and when it is continuously moving, it must lose energy. So they are saying that whenever electrons are revolving around the nucleus, they should lose energy continuously. As a result, electron would be accelerated to the nucleus, or you can say that it will move towards the nucleus, and the radius of the orbit becomes smaller and smaller and ultimately fall into the nucleus. That is, we are saying that electrons are revolving around the nucleus and they are continuously giving out energy. When they are continuously giving out energy, they are coming closer and closer because they don't have that much energy now possessed in them. They are continuously giving out, so their radius is becoming smaller and smaller. Ultimately, what is the result? That they fall on the nucleus, or you can simply say that atomic structure would collapse and atom will cease to exist. But if electrons emit energy continuously, it should form continuous spectrum. But actually line spectrum is obtained, that is, continuous emission of energy is not possible unless and until an electron jumps from a lower to a higher orbit or from a higher to a lower orbit. So line spectrum is obtained, not a continuous spectrum. This was one of the most important drawback of Rutherford's model. They can ask you in your short questions that explain the defects or shortcomings or drawbacks of Rutherford's atomic model. So you have to write all this. Now it was Bohr's atomic model, or Bohr explained or modified the atomic model given by Rutherford. Rutherford's atomic model was, we can just assume it as a planetary system, that it is revolving around the sun. Definitely there isn't any sun present in the atom. We can say that around the electrons, that all the electrons whatever are present, they are revolving around the nucleus, and in the nucleus is protons and neutrons. Mostly this question comes in your short question, that explain Bohr's atomic model and its applications, or give the important features of Bohr's atomic model. So Bohr's atomic model is that electrons revolve around the nucleus in definite energy levels called orbits or shells. That is, we can say that when an electron is revolving around the nucleus in its fixed position or in its fixed path, the path is known as orbit or shell. It will neither lose neither gain energy, rather than will have definite energy level and will be moving around the nucleus. Second is, as long as an electron remains in its shell, it never gains or loses energy. That is, neither it is moving to a higher or a lower orbit, so it will neither gain or lose energy, rather than will have a fixed energy level. Third is, the gain or loss of energy occurs within orbits only in what are the conditions? Due to jumping of electron from one energy level to another energy level. That is, we can simply say that when an electron is gaining energy, it will move from a lower energy to a higher energy level, and when it comes back to its original orbit, it will lose energy. Or when an electron loses energy, we can say that it is moving from a higher energy orbit to a lower energy orbit. So energy levels are different, which are making the energy difference flow in the atom or out of the atom. Fourth is that angular momentum. Now what is angular momentum? that when we are saying that an electron is revolving around the nucleus, it means that it is making certain angles due to which it is coming towards the nucleus or is moving in a circular path. Otherwise, if it is moving in with the speed, it may go out of the orbit and would be moving out. But due to angular momentum, it is forced to stay within certain region where the neutrons and the protons have the ability to attract the electrons. Or we can say that angular momentum NVR of an electron is equal to, this is a fixed value, nh by 2 pi. Now what are all these values? That m is the mass, v is the velocity, r is the radius, n is the number of orbits about which we are talking about, and h is the Planck's constant, 2 is a constant value, and pi is also a constant value. Fifth point is, angular momentum of an orbit depends upon its quantum number. What is meant by quantum number? This in detail we will study. This will be the last topic of this chapter, quantum numbers, that we have different quantum numbers. Briefly, I'll just tell you what are the quantum numbers. They are basically telling us about the shells or the orbits and subshells or the suborbits and the orbitals over there. That is, there are 4 quantum numbers: principal quantum number, azimuthal quantum number, magnetic quantum number, and spin quantum number. With the help of all these 4 quantum numbers, we can exactly find out the position of an electron within an atom. This in detail about all the quantum number we will be studying in the next few lectures. Over here you just have to learn that angular momentum depends upon the quantum number, and the integral multiple of the factor h by 2 pi. That is, we can simply say that MVR is equal to NH by 2 pi, where N can be any solid number, 1, 2, 3. It can't be 1.2 or 1.5 or any it can only be a whole number. It can't be a fraction over there, because orbits are fixed 1, 2, 3, that is K, L, M and so on. It can't be in the middle somewhere between 2 orbits. Now derivation, this derivation is really very important from your exam point of view. Definitely either in your home exams or in the board also it comes, that derive the radius of an orbit of an atom. So for it you have to really make so many times the practice so that you don't make any mistakes, because just even one single step making wrong, all the equation will go wrong and you will lose marks. So do practice of this thing again and again so that there shouldn't be a single mistake in it. Plus, minus, raised to power, something like that, and all the equation will be wrong. Remember that don't try to use shortcuts for these equations. You have to put in all the equations, whatever their number may be, so that you can get full marks. Now for this, for calculating the radius of an atom, Bohr took the simplest atom, and the simplest one is that of hydrogen atom. Why hydrogen is the simplest? Because it has 1 proton and 1 electron around it without any neutrons. So we can just simply say that we are basically studying the relationship between an electron and a proton. If we are taking any higher atomic number atom or any heavier atomic number atom over there, main thing is that we have to convert those atoms into the simplest ionic form by losing all the electrons from it and making it only 1 electron with the proton 1 effect on it. Or we can simply say that we can convert all the atoms into hydrogen atom and then apply this calculation, or we can apply these all formulas over there. Now you can see that it is written over there that Bohr said that all the atoms when converted into ions resemble the structure of hydrogen. That is, if we take helium, helium is having 2 electrons and 2 protons, but we have removed one from it, so it is helium +1. Lithium is +2, and we have to calculate the radius of this. Simply you can see the diagram that if this red portion is considered to be the nucleus or plus, this plus indicates that it is a proton over there, and Z is basically the atomic number and E is the charge. And what is the charge on the proton? It is the positive charge. So we can say that it is Ze plus or simply Ze. Without any plus means that there is definitely plus, otherwise if there is negative we have to put Ze minus. But if plus is over there, if there isn't anything, it means it is plus. So in the nucleus is the protons present, while yellow color is that of an electron, E negative. It has certain mass, and from the nucleus till this distance, or you can say that this orbit, there is present a radius over there. As we are studying that, we have to calculate the radius of an atom, that from the nucleus at what distance is the electron present. We can say that electron is revolving around the nucleus in certain fixed shells or orbits, and it is being attracted towards the nucleus. Otherwise, what happens is that as it is moving, it can go out if something from the middle or something from the center is not attracting it. It can go out of this circle and can move out. So something is attracted inwards and which is forcing the electron to move in. Let us consider an atom having an electron E minus moving around the nucleus having charge Ze, where Z is the atomic number. Let M be the mass, R radius of an atom orbit, and V the velocity with which an electron is revolving. Now two forces would be working on an electron so that electron is fixed in its orbit. First one is centrifugal force, or forcing the electron to move away or outside the atom. That is, centrifugal force is forcing the electron that it should go out from the orbit. But at the same time, centripetal force or Coulomb's force, which is also known as electrostatic force, is making it move inside the orbit, or is forcing the electron to move towards the orbit or inside the orbit. Both of these forces, that is centrifugal force and centripetal force, are working together and both of them are equal. So that's why electron doesn't move out of the orbit, neither it comes and falls in the nucleus. Rather than it is moving in its fixed orbit. Now considering that according to Coulomb's law, electrostatic force or Coulomb's force of attraction, which is equal to that it is Ze plus, plus means that we are talking about the protons into electrons by 4 pi epsilon naught r square, or we can say that as both the charges are over there, if we just add the charges, it becomes as square. Or we can simply say that Coulomb's force or electrostatic force is equal to Ze square by 4 pi epsilon naught r square, where epsilon naught is permittivity constant and the value is 8.84 into 10 raised to power minus 12 Coulomb square per joule per meter. Whereas centrifugal force, which is acting on an electron, and it is equal to mv square by r. if we make both of them equal to each other, as we have already said that both of them are equal but in opposite direction, so that's why electron is moving in its fixed orbit. So centrifugal force is equal to centripetal force or Coulomb's force, or you can say that mv square by r is equal to ze square by 4 pi epsilon naught r square. Or if we just take this r to the other side of the equation, we get it as mv square is equal to ze square by 4 pi epsilon naught r. R square is changed to r because when we are making it move to the other side, it is coming in the denominator. So r are cancelled, only one r or radius is left behind. If we take this r up over there and bring mv square down, we get a new equation. That is, we are just simply rearranging the same equation. We are not changing the equation, we are just rearranging it so that we can calculate the radius, because our topic which we are studying is to derive the radius of hydrogen atom or any atom. So r is equal to ze square by 4 pi epsilon naught mv square. This is not the complete equation, we have to further move on to calculate it, and it is that simply we can conclude that radius of an electron or of the moving electron is inversely proportional to the square of the velocity. That is, radius if smaller, it means that the electron which is present is very close to the nucleus and is moving with a very fast speed. But as it is moving away and away, that is, radius is increasing, speed must decrease. Then is, according to angular momentum, that is mvr is equal to nh by 2 pi. If you remember, just in the postulates or in the points, important points of Bohr's atomic model, there was one of the point related to angular momentum. That is, mvr is equal to nh by 2 pi. If we just leave v and take all the other things to the other side, we get as nh by 2 pi mr. In the upper equation we have v square, so we have to square all this equation, both right and left hands. So we get as v square is equal to n square h square by 4 pi square m square r square. Now we can take this v square value and put it in the equation 2. So r becomes equal to ze square by 4 pi epsilon naught m, and v was over there, v square, so we have just put the value over there, that is 4 pi m square r square by n square and h square. Or simply we can say that as r and r are present over there, we have just taken it as 1 is equal to ze square pi m r by epsilon naught n square h square. Or if we just cross multiply it, we get it as that ze square pi m r is equal to epsilon naught n square h square. Leaving r to one side, we get as r is equal to epsilon naught n square h square by z e square m pi. This equation is very important and you have to remember it as such, because sometimes in exams they ask you to calculate the radius of any atom. It can be any atom. So pi value will be fixed, n cannot be fixed, because n is basically the shell number. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, but epsilon naught is a constant, permittivity constant, it would be fixed. H is a fixed Planck's constant value. Z cannot be fixed because it is the atomic number, or it can be the number of that atom about which we are talking about. E is a fixed value, M mass is also fixed, and pi is also fixed. So we can say that from all this equation, N can vary and Z can vary. Otherwise, all the other things are constant. But particularly if we are talking about hydrogen atom, then Z will also be fixed, which is 1. Then the thing which will be variable will only be N square. All the other things would be constant. I hope so that it is very clear up till here. Then is that if we say that we are talking about hydrogen atom or hydrogen, then Z would be equal to 1, then R is equal to epsilon naught N square H square or over pi M e raised to power 2. Now all this except N square and Z are constant values, and these constants we have said as A naught. We have taken all these as constants. So our R becomes equal to N square into a constant A naught by Z. Or you can say that R is equal to N square A naught by Z. Or if you are making it proportionality over there, that R is directly proportional to N square but inversely proportional to Z. That is N square means that number of shells about which we are talking about, and A naught is equal to epsilon naught H square by pi M e square, and all of it is a constant value. They have put the values in it and they have calculated. All this becomes equal to 0.529 into 10 raised to power minus 10 meters. This is very important value which you have to remember, as well as this equation is also very important which you have to remember. Mostly it comes in your objectives that the value of A naught is equal to dash. So you have to remember it. Or if we are talking about in case of angstroms over there, then it is 0.529 angstrom, because 1 angstrom is equal to 10 raised to power minus 10 meter. Or simply we can say that R is equal to N square into this value, that is 0.529 angstrom. If we are changing the value of N, that is it can be 1, 2, 3, any such value, then N, if we are saying that it is equal to 1, then our R would be R is equal to 1 square into 0.529 angstrom. So our value will be 0.529 angstrom. And if we are saying that if N is equal to 2, then R is equal to 2 square, which is equal to 4 into 0.529 angstrom, which is equal to 2.116. From here you can very simply say and see that if N is 1, that is it is close to the nucleus, the radius is smaller, that is radius is 0.529. When N is equal to 2, or we are talking about the second shell, then definitely the radius is larger, it is 2.11. So what is the relationship between radius and N? Both of them are directly proportional to each other. I hope so that all of it is clear up till here, and you have to do practice again and again so that you can make all this thing on your fingertips, and it is really very important. Thank you, girls.